Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
Jim Blasingame, he's the cyber king of small business. Search Google for small business expert, and he's tops on the list.
I guess that makes you number one.
He's number one on Google and number one in our hearts. He's Jim Blasingame, the small business advocate.
Welcome back, 34 after the hour. Happy Memorial Day. My pleasure to continue to be with you as always. And what would a holiday be without our good friend Ken Davis? I can't even imagine broadcasting live from any particular holiday without getting a visit with our good friend Ken Davis. Kenneth C. Davis is the author of a number of books, including the Don't Know Much About series. Don't know much about history, don't know much about mythology, don't know much about farming, whatever. He's got the whole series on that. Also for the children, wonderful books for the children. His new book is called A Nation Rising, and he's our good friend Ken Davis. Welcome back, and happy Memorial Day.
Thank you, Jim. Always a pleasure to be with you, especially on this most important of American holidays.
Absolutely. Ken, Memorial Day is a very American holiday, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. It's very American in the sense that it grew out of the American Civil War. Of course, the losses there are astonishing. So 600,000, probably more than that, died in 4 years of fighting. Of course, we're marking the 150th anniversary. And that was not only a big number by itself, but it was 2% of the population back then.
Yeah.
So we'd be talking about more than 6 million people dying today with a war of that magnitude. So there was no town or village in the country that was untouched by this war. And a practice began around the country in many places of going out to lay fresh flowers on the fallen soldiers' graves, to decorate the graves. And in 1868, that became a holiday known as Decoration Day.
Hold on to that thought, Ken, because one of the things that in my research, that I want to make sure we talk about a little bit, the women felt moved. The things that I've seen, the women felt moved to go and decorate these graves of these fallen men from the Civil War during the Civil War. Actually, while the war was going on. But what I saw, which I thought was so important to say, is that they didn't just, if it was in the South, they didn't just decorate the Confederate graves. They decorated all of them, for example. And
that's very true.
I thought that's something we shouldn't leave out.
One even perhaps even more significant in a way, and I believe it was 1865. So during the war, just after the war might have ended. In Charleston, where the war actually began, in a sense, there's a record of a group of emancipated African Americans going out and reburying the remains of Union soldiers who had fallen there and had just been thrown into a mass grave.
Right.
They rebury them, and then the children come out and decorate these graves with flowers. It's a very, very poignant story. But on the other hand, when Memorial Day was first proclaimed, Decoration Day was proclaimed in 1868 on May 30th, it was seen as a Northern or a Union holiday, and many of the other states, the former Confederate states, began to celebrate their own separate day.
And that was because it came from an order by one of the generals of the U.S. Army.
He had been a Civil War general at the time he made the proclamation. He was in charge of something called the Grand Army of the Republic, which was a kind of fraternal organization of former Union soldiers and officers, kind of like the American Legion of its day, or the VFW of its day, and a very powerful political group. But it was clearly seen as a Union holiday back then.
And that was
the May 30th date.
Go ahead.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
I'd say the May 30th date was really chosen because that's when the most flowers were in bloom in the North, and that's why. Otherwise, it's a rather arbitrary date. There's no anniversary or anything on that day. So,
and that man's name was John Logan, by the way, General John Logan.
John Logan, that's right. And his proclamation is his first proclamation. You can find it pretty easily online. It's very, very moving. But this was meant to honor what Lincoln called in the Great Gettysburg Address the last full measure of devotion. Those who had sacrificed their lives in honor to the nation's ideals, and that's what we're really celebrating today.
Right.
That's what we're observing today. It is different from Veterans Day. It's different from just remembering anybody. We're remembering those specifically who gave their lives in service to the country. So it is a special day. But
hold on to that, Ken. Hold on to that thought. I'm gonna let you finish that thought. We'll come back after these messages. 20 till, right back. We're going to talk more about the history of Memorial Day. We have the man right here on the show who knows all about that, Ken Davis. Right after these messages, 20 till. The last book that I know of that our very prolific author, Kenneth C. Davis, wrote is A Nation Rising.
Baby, on a hard day's night, she was hanging on Johnny, he was holding on.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited.